Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Steel City Resistance. My name is Hutch Jr., and I am located deep down in the bunker in the city of Pittsburgh. And as usual, it's time to open up the Southern Command, and we will open that up from Orlando, Florida, and welcome Mr. J onto the program.
Thanks, Hutch. Hello to everybody in the crowd. The Southern Command is under construction, but it is fully armed and activated, much like the Death Star on Return of the Jedi.
There you go. Way to start her off right. I'd like to hope that everybody in the audience had a great Thanksgiving. We had a wonderful time here, gathering of family and friends, and just a time to reflect on what we have to be thankful for, which is a lot. And we hope that everybody down at the Southern Command had a good one.
Well, we had a great time. A lot of family came over, and you know what? I am good for turkey for the next 6 months. I don't care if I ever see another turkey. But other than that, everybody had a good time, and it was nice to see people you don't see in a while and hang out for a little while, watch some football.
I'll tell you, there's not much. There's not much like uh, Thanksgiving turkey. I mean, every year that turkey sandwich after it's all said and done, uh, it's just wonderful for me. I every year after Thanksgiving, I swear I say this. Why don't we do this more often? Why do we only do this one time a year? Because we never cook a turkey any other time. So I still have some left. I got a big 20-pounder this year, and it was fantastic. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you, viewers especially, for watching the show. We've had some pretty good numbers in the past few weeks, but I would like to remind you that we also have a radio show. And while the viewers, I mean, this show might go all TV. That's the difference in the different numbers. And I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that if you can't sit here and watch the show, you can also download it on iTunes at Surrounded in Pittsburgh, Steel City Resistance. And that's free. It's also on Stitcher. It's on Libsyn. It's a bunch of other places. So do us a favor and send us an email, scrtv@live.com, and let us know what are your feelings about that. This is a wonderful venue. I love Spreecast. It's getting better and better as we go. We're having less fails, although the intro did fail today, so maybe I better just keep my mouth shut about that for right now. But we love you, Spreecast. We do. You're doing great things for us, and you might put our radio show out of business. So send us an email if you don't want that to happen, and we'll go from there. Um, so yeah, internet or iTunes. Mr. J, I'll tell you, man, something that it I can't wait to show this next video. I hope it works. If it doesn't, ladies and gentlemen, press play. But one of the things that was eerily East German in nature happened here over the holiday. The administration decided, Organizing for America, whatever they're called now, they decided that they were going to try to interject into everybody's Thanksgiving dinner and get people to give the Obamacare talk. That was pretty funny, Mr. J.
That was hilarious. And, I know nobody in their right mind talked about Obamacare at Thanksgiving. I know I didn't. We were talking about when's Aaron Rodgers going to be back. But, I mean, it was a pathetic attempt to try to gin up some interest in this health care law like people would want it. And it's really sad.
It is one of the groups of people that I really it's hard for me to take is liberal white women. I mean, I love you ladies, but I got to tell you, you got to watch this and listen to this lady behind the camera that is just totally she's totally drank the Kool-Aid. She ought to be in Jonestown. I mean, it's just something. Take a watch, ladies and gentlemen. And again, if it doesn't play right away, press play because it's a cheap cell phone video, but this thing is gold. I mean, this is so rich. I watched this and I just, yay for the team, man. There is hope in the United States.
I
So,
love the laughter is too. It's just too funny. She sounds like Hillary Clinton when she's talking. It was kind of creepy.
it was, and like everything else with liberalism or leftism, she had to trick them to get them into the room. She had to trick them and say we were going to have a family photo for anybody to even consider doing this, and they laughed her right off. The oh, it was beautiful. I mean, it started out small, and then everybody got it. And I'm thinking, this stupid liberal woman is she's doomed, and she's dooming everyone around her that's under her purview, And it's just wow. I had to share that with the audience.
They're going to find a different house to have Thanksgiving at next year. I can guarantee you that.
Oh yeah, old Aunt Mabel. That's not gonna work again. What a fool! What a damn fool! And look at the audience. I mean, they weren't even old enough to be dealing with health insurance, But they
And they obviously didn't care either.
no, it was something else. They were laughing immediately. That was great. Now, on a little bit more of a serious note, a much more serious note, there was a U.S. military veteran, and I'm going to guess he was a veteran of the Korean War, and for some reminiscent reason or whatever, he decided that he wanted to go to North Korea. Now, how he finagled that, I don't know. I don't know how you do that. I mean, unless you're not Charles Barkley. What's the other guy's name? Rodman. Uh, unless you have some kind of status like that, I don't really understand how you do this. But apparently, this veteran did, and as soon as he did, North Koreans showed their colors. So why don't you show us this video, Mr. J, of this situation in North Korea? Old Raditz, man, I'll tell you, she looks about cadaverous in that piece.
Yeah. I wonder why the guy went there, but I haven't walked a mile in his shoes. It may be something he felt he needed to do, but this move by North Korea just goes to show how useless this whole regime is over there, how desperate they are to get some attention to, detain this guy who's older than dirt for no reason at all. It's really a shame, and I hope the State Department can use some leverage and get this guy out of there.
I'll tell you, just to make sure our listeners understand, and I'm sure most of you do, but uh, having had the honor of serving with the 2nd Infantry Division in Korea in the early 80s, I've had a lot of time to study that conflict and these people. And I'll tell you, man, that a group of GIs was never beat up so badly as the ones in Korea were. I mean, these guys, the amount of killing in a short amount of time is only rivaled by the Civil War and World War II. I mean, over there, just the environmental conditions of the peninsula in the wintertime and the summer, but in the wintertime, it was deadly. I mean, almost 50% of our casualties, which were about 38,000 in the span of 3 years, most of which occurred in 1950, 45 to 50% of them were weather casualties, were actually being killed by the cold. And I was cold. I was never close to death, but I was cold, and I can just only imagine what that is. And not only that, but the leadership made some mistakes. Um, Up in the northern part of the peninsula near the Chinese border, near the Chosin Reservoir, There were actual physical captures of Chinese troops, and they wouldn't believe it in the command, and several divisions were rendered combat ineffective or even worse. You know, these guys got caught retreating, coming south, and the road networks were nothing like you see today. I mean, these were two-lane roads, some of them dirt, and on one side you had just rocky mountains with no vegetation on them per se. On the other side you had river, and the Chinese had the high ground. So all you had to do was disable one vehicle, and you clogged up this road, and the guys were like fish in a barrel. You know, it was just horrendous, man. I just wanted to put that out there because it's another thing that's not taught very well in our schools, especially to the younger people might not understand. If you ever see a veteran, he's got a Korean War veteran hat, go thank him, man. I mean, these guys just brutal combat. Okay, that was
That's right. Real deal there, and it was very bloody. And you're right, it is forgotten, but it was the conditions were deplorable. It was terrible, and they hardly ever get any credit. We always talk about the World War II guys, but you know these guys in Korea, they had it really rough as well.
I'll tell you, I just one more quick story from my ute. Uh, I had a warrant officer that was uh, probably 60 years old. He joined the Army very young, and he had a combat patch from the 8th Army. So he was in the Korean War, and that's very rare. I mean, this guy was old, and this was in the 80s. And he used to get mad at Vietnam vets. And I'm not, this is not anything against Vietnam vets, ladies and gentlemen. This is just a comparison of the intensity of these two conflicts. Uh, he would get mad because people would always mention Hamburger Hill or the Yadrang Valley and things like that. And this guy was what's called a retrans operator. He sat up on top of a mountain and he got signals from radios on one side of the mountain where the battle was going on, and he retrans them to the other side of the mountain where the headquarters was. And he said it was nothing to see an American entire battalion get lost in 15 minutes. I mean, that's how quick the Chinese used human wave attacks. Uh, there's stories that I researched of guys that were manning machine guns. That the Chinese, the difference between the Chinese and most communist armies and the United States Army is we can adapt and overcome. They can't adapt. They get the plan, and there's no other leaders. You know, there's one plan, and the plan was to attack at night. And the sergeant, one of his tracers, lit a fire down where the Chinese were when they were starting their attack because they used bugles and all kind of things. And a fire started, and they kept on coming to put the fire out with their feet. You know. And he said that morning when the sun came up, there was 350 bodies there, and that machine gunner almost went crazy, you know, of all the mayhem that ensued. So anyway, God bless you, Korean War veterans and Vietnam veterans. That was not a snub at the Vietnam veterans whatsoever. You guys caught your own hell. So shifting from that a little bit, Mr. J, and I almost, in retrospect, we ought to have a video of this, although I'm kind of embarrassed. I think one of the most hideous American embarrassments occurs every Black Friday with this Walmart thing with just the mob, and it cuts across every racial parameter there is. I mean, this I don't know, materialism. These people, these mobs that go nuts at these Walmarts, just blows my mind.
It is quite disturbing, and we saw a guy get shot for a television set. I mean, what kind of person thinks that somebody's life is worth less than a television set? How sad is that? And furthermore, from what I'm reading, that they didn't make as much money this year as they did last year, the stores. And so what they've done, I guess, is they're diluting the shopping season so much, in advance of Thanksgiving and everything. They're not getting the money in, but people are running into these stores not to buy gifts. They're going in there to buy themselves something, and they go in there and grab what they want and haul butt back home, take it out of the box and plug it in. This is all the wrong reasons that people are doing this. It's materialism. It's selfish. It's really sad what has really come to this. I know people that went in and for like that TV or whatever, they said the line was backed up, out the door, waiting for a stinking TV of all things.
I know it's unbelievable, and I'll give a hat tip to the chat room. Apparently, we have a lot of veterans and families of veterans in there, so thank you all for your service. My pleasure for mine. But yeah, it's just something that I don't know, man. It's a decline in our morality. I mean, I heard somebody say it quite well that, I'm going to go trample on people I don't know to buy something I don't need with money I don't have. That's basically what's going on here. And it's just a sign of the decay of our times. And it just shows you the tough work that we personally, Mr. J, you and I have as we rebuild this culture. And we're a part of that. And so's the audience. And we're going to do it, damn it. I don't care if it takes the rest of my life. This has got to stop. And I'm not naive. I mean, I know that we're not going to single-handedly turn this around, but I refuse to participate in this kind of thing, in this Black Friday. These people are embarrassing themselves, man. It's just something that I don't know. I watch it and it's like, really, people? I mean, really?
Yeah, I went to Lowe's to get some building supplies, and the shoppers were all in there full force on the where the tools and stuff are. I was going to the building supply section. I had the place to myself over there, so it was kind of easy in, easy out. But they just go crazy over it. I just assume shop on my time. I'll go online, and there was plenty of deals to be had online. There's no need to do this bum rush for a television or something. It's really not necessary. People just want instant gratification, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I even heard a guy talking that it was a sport to him. It wasn't even about really going and buying anything. He just wanted to be involved in this madness. And I don't know. It reminds you like Sodom and Gomorrah, man. I mean, I'm telling you, this is this is just deteriorating to the point where, wow, time to go to Australia or something. I'm just kidding about that. There's hope, ladies and gentlemen. There's hope. Now, the one of the other pillars of our demise would seem to be this knockout game. I think New York had its 10th victim of recent, with like a 73-year-old lady getting clocked. But I see it starting to get some media attention, and that can't be a bad thing. Uh, there's a phenomenon of outright denial by some of these leftists and some libertarians that I've heard lately that just boggles the mind. So every time I see something, I post it because there's no denying this. At ease, man. There's no denying this. We got to confront this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as what they would consider important people fall victim to the knockout game is going to bring more attention. I think we saw a lawmaker from New York State get clocked in D.C., and that kind of got the ball rolling a little bit. But I'm glad it's finally getting some attention. And a lot of people think this just started, this year or something, but it's been going on for years. And people just chalk it up to some kind of random violence, and it's obviously much bigger than that.
Where they want somebody to be a victim, and it's the reason that it's happening is because the people performing the assaults are victims, and I'm not having that either. The only thing I would caution is what inevitably is going to happen is the wrong person is going to get jacked, and he's going to have associates, and this is going to be paid back, and that's just inevitable. If this keeps happening, some kid whose dad's in a motorcycle gang or something is going to get hit, and somebody's going to bring hell on a whole lot of people, and you almost have to wonder if that's why the Justice Department is letting this slide. So that could be a precursor, but we won't go into the conspiracy theories. But I don't put a whole lot past these people. I really don't. So I mean,
Most of these happen in the gun-free zones, the gun-free cities. I mean, this isn't happening too much in rural areas and smaller towns where concealed weapons and you're allowed to carry. I mean, this is just them picking a target, and they know chances are that person's not armed. You know,
Well,
it's the same gamble someone takes if they do a home invasion. They don't know if it's here, but in the city, well, they can assume that guy's not armed.
yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. Uh, you don't see a whole lot of this happening out in the country or in flyover country because somebody be popped already. Although some people are getting shot over this, and the more the merrier. I think if you do this, if you participate in this kind of activity, I hope somebody shoots you. I do, because this is antisocial, uncivilized behavior, and you need to be put down because it's just the way I feel. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry at all. That's the way I feel. Uh, Now, that being said, shifting over to the other side of the globe and the Al Nusra front, which you haven't been hearing a lot about lately because they're getting their asses kicked, the Syrian rebels. Apparently, I read an article, Mr. J, and they even have pictures. These guys went to a zoo outside Damascus, and I don't know how they got him, but there was a starving lion in the zoo because I guess the lions aren't a top priority in the middle of the bloodshed. But they actually butchered and ate a zoo lion.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. You got to be. I guess they have to be pretty doggone hungry. Instead of sending over, RPGs and guns, maybe they should have sent some sandwiches over there to these guys. I don't know, but I hope that I'm never hungry enough that I got to eat a lion. But that's weird, and thankfully one of those clerics decreed it was okay to eat some of these animals now. So I mean, that just goes to show how desperate and how easily they can bend their strict Muslim religion to suit their needs.
Oh, they do it all the time too. They certainly do. I mean, they had if you'll remember, a couple months ago, a whole bunch of Syrian women were sent to the battlefield so they could relieve some of the fighters' sexual tensions per se. Like they just made it okay. They just deemed it all right. It's good now. You can go ahead and do whatever you want for the cause here. So anyway, that's something. They're eating lions. Now, there's been a rash of heat waves and global warming is really kicking in. And I think 1,000 low temperature records have been met in the last couple of weeks. It has been cold. I mean, it was even cold at the Southern Command, I understand.
It did get down to about 36. That's a little unusual. But this whole global warming thing fell apart a few years back when the planet started cooling. And I just saw a recent survey of meteorologists, and half of them don't believe none of this, global warming stuff, and that goes right in the face of President Obama's. 95% of scientists believe that man-made global warming is happening, and it's just ridiculous to think that carbon here and putting it somewhere else is going to make a difference. Carbon is carbon. It's here, whether it's in a gas form. It's going to turn into a solid once the tree dissolves it or whatever. I mean, these guys are alchemists that are coming up with this crap. I mean, the planet's been going through cycles, and the sun has a lot to do with it. Volcanoes. They're just trying to peddle this crap to do a wealth redistribution scheme to the third world. That's all this is. Way to tax from evil capitalists and give to banana republic dictators.
Yep. And it's if it doesn't get burned here and we don't enjoy the economic benefit of it, it's going to go to China and that part of the world, and that's already happening. And like you said, that's your real income redistribution. It's not inside the United States. It's taking it from the United States and putting it outside the United States. That's the devious side of it. So hopefully, when we finally clean this up, we can put that to bed forever too. There's still people that believe that, and I mean, it's what do they call it about the science? It's settled science. No, I don't think so. It's settled. It's just not settled the way you want it to be settled.
It's just funny.
Ladies and gentlemen, your weekly Jihad report for November 23rd to November 29th. 58 Jihad attacks, 12 Allah Akbars, 306 dead bodies, 439 critically injured. The religion of peace, ladies and gentlemen, one body at a time. Now, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Mr. J. That was a little timing issue on my end. I apologize. Did you have something else on the global warming?
I was just going to say, when it gets cold, you don't see Al Gore around too much. He doesn't have a lot to say.
He's something, isn't he? He's a character. I mean, this guy, he's got to be dying inside. He just has to be. He's so irrelevant. Other than the fact that I watched Al Jazeera TV the other day. They had a documentary. I guess their ratings are in the tank, but they had a documentary about India's civil war, and I was checking it out. Something you wouldn't see on another network. I didn't realize until halfway in that it was on Al Jazeera.
Yeah, I think their viewership is under 50,000 at best. At
Yeah,
best, they've got no business on a cable network at all, and there's so many other venues that could be on cable that have way more viewers. I'm not going to mention any particular the Blaze channels, but you know what I mean.
yeah. I've been trying to get DirecTV to put the Blaze on, and they won't, man. They put Al Jazeera on though quicker than anything. Now, this next story, actually our first hard story of the evening, is one that really bothers me. And I think, barring any tragic event in the future, which is highly possible, I think that in the history books, probably President Obama and his administration's legacy is going to be Iraq. We spent years over there and thousands of casualties and tens of thousands of wounded to secure victory in Iraq, and we did a pretty doggone good job of it. Charles Krauthammer says Obama tossed away George W. Bush's Iraq war victory. He says that Bush's surge strategy in Iraq had essentially snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, but President Barack Obama squandered that victory by failing to negotiate a status of forces agreement, a SOFA, with the country. And that's completely true. I mean, that happened, and it was his fault, and all the people around him, Democrats, all you Democrats, you squandered 5,000 dead, and no telling how many Iraqis dead. Uh, Unbelievable. And it got me at the time that it was happening. And now you look back, and everything's there that was there before, except for Saddam Hussein.
That's exactly right. I mean, and I feel bad. What really gets me is the people that we lost and the people that came back injured, putting in their blood, sweat, and tears and giving their life to have this president just say, "Okay, we're done with Iraq. We're done here. Thank you for your service." And this thing's just falling apart over there, and it really is a slap in the face to people that fought, you know, in that conflict. And there was no reason why we couldn't keep a presence there, a substantial presence. And I hear people say that we don't need to be the world's policeman. Well, I say we need to have bases, strategic bases across the globe, and I'll give you one example why, and that's going to be World War II and Pearl Harbor. We didn't have, our bases secure. We didn't have enough people around, and we were always, behind the curve on that. And this is why I think we should have left the presence there, a substantial presence. It's very, problematic part of the world, and we should be there.
I agree, and I can tell you that. Well, let me give Krauthammer's version. The Iraq War was won, and we were in a position, if we had just negotiated a SOFA, to have an ally in the region, to have a base, to train their air force that would have changed the course of the future, he told the Daily Caller. Instead, a decision was made by the new administration to evacuate, leaving a vacuum where Iran has come in, where Al-Qaeda thrives, and Al-Qaeda actually has extended itself into Syria, and our viewers know that via the al-Nusra Front. This was all unnecessary and all the result of the liquidation of a war that was won. So I think history is going to look at this a little differently than we do contemporaneously, Krauthammer added. Thank you, Charles. This was a very high price, too much blood, too much treasure for those intervening years. But I think in some sense, what happened in the end was able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, and that was tossed away. And it's despicable. And President Obama and all the Democrats that supported you, this is your legacy. You own this. I'm sorry you did it. A lot of great people, much greater than any of you, sacrificed everything for nothing. And we're getting ready to do it again. Because another thing that probably wouldn't have happened is the current situation that we have in Iran. The Democrats have done it again with this ridiculous, I don't know what you call it, agreement with Iran that our president, I mean, out of his usual combination of incompetence, ideology, and partisan politics, is moving the Middle East to the brink of war. I mean, that's what this guy's doing. We're allowing them. I was watching last night, Mr. J, and I was thinking of the parallels between the Iranians. I watched the movie about Iran's the hostages the other night. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a pretty good movie. And I started thinking, I'm watching these scenes, and I'm thinking they think we're punks again, and we are. I mean, diplomatically, they know that we're not going to do anything. We're giving them 8 years to build a bomb.
It's the leadership that we have in the White House, and you look back to when Jimmy Carter was in, it was the same deal. I mean, this guy is spineless, and they know that. They detect weakness and they exploit it, and that's exactly what they're doing here.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily that he's afraid to do anything. I think it's against his ideology. I think we've totally flipped on who our allies are. We better never let this happen again. I mean, this is a one and done thing. The Democrats need to be taught a lesson about this. This is not acceptable in any stage at all. I mean, Democrat progressive ideas on national defense date from 100 years ago. Before World War One and World War II, before the 6 million dead Jews, the 20 to 60 million dead Russians, the 70 million dead Chinese, before the rise of Nazi-infected Islamism in the Arab world, before Al-Qaeda and 9/11. It's no longer 1913. It's not even 9/11 2001. We have learned to take demented dictators with modern arms seriously. The Israelis certainly have, as before the Jews are the first target considered expendable by our American president. I mean, hostility to Israel, I mean, it's now the majority position among Democrat voters. You know, there's polls. I mean, the threat from a nuclear Iran to Israel's existence doesn't make them blink. Democrats were asked to choose for which side, Israelis or Palestinians, they have more sympathy. Only 34% of Democrats picked Israel. And surprisingly, only 67% of Republicans.
That is troubling. And another thing that I find very troubling is the Jewish people that are here in this country, other than a few that I know, online that are conservatives, you hear very little out of them about how this administration is really selling Israel out. It's supposed to be, our number one ally in the region. And, that should, when Netanyahu has a problem with this, a good president would stop and listen and address that instead of going behind his back and selling him out. That's not, that's not the way an ally should treat another ally.
And Scott in the chat room brings up a good point. Same thing that we did in Vietnam, and that's absolutely true. We did it a little different, but we defunded. The Democrats, in effect, defunded the Vietnam War, and when the minute that they stopped all air support, the tanks started rolling south, and they ended up. I mean, there was uniforms, South Vietnamese military uniforms on the street. The generals all defected and came here. General Lee Duc Thu, I remember that. He showed up here. He was a president at the time. So you're right. And I don't know. It's something, ladies and gentlemen, you can go to the website, steelcityresistance.blogspot.com, and go to the show notes links page. And this is a pretty long and in-depth story that's it's really good read, a good read. I mean, these are the people who were happy when Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton helped the Nazi Islamist Muslim Brotherhood depose America's ally, President Mubarak, in Egypt. They like the idea of America making concessions to Iran. It makes them feel good. This is not a fringe element in their party, it's mainstream. Obama's supporters think that only rednecks and cowboys see Islamic radicals as enemies of America. To them, the serious enemies are Tea Party and evangelicals. They always believed that Obama would turn the Islamists into friends. Now he's doing it. So I highly suggest you go read that. I don't have enough time to get into it any longer, but there's a lot of material in there, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's spot on, and he's exactly right. I mean, this administration has labeled patriot groups, Tea Party groups, and others like them as the enemy. I mean, who would, in a rational world, who would consider somebody that's a constitutionalist an enemy unless you were, a Marxist? And that's exactly what this guy is. I mean, he's changing what it means to be an ally and an enemy. He's changing who our allies are and who our enemies are. And it's not going to be good, and we need to get a handle on it ASAP.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you have a government that considers its veterans to be a threat, you've got an upside down picture. And that's exactly what we have here. And if you're a Democrat, please don't say you support the troops, because you don't. You might think you do inside, but your vote clearly indicates that you do not support the troops. You support the Muslim Brotherhood. And we will be talking about that from now until the elections. That's what you're going to be labeled. You're going to be labeled a Muslim Brotherhood supporter. Not so in Angola, Mr. J. Angola has seen the light.
This is one of those feel-good stories. I'm so glad you found it. But human rights activists condemn crackdown through officials in largely Catholic nation, insist reports of ban are exaggerated. Angola has been accused of banning Islam after shutting down most of the country's mosques amid reports of violence and intimidation against women who wear the veil.
Isn't it wonderful to see somebody seeing the light finally?
Yeah, I'm starting to like this place. I might change to be Catholic again.
I'll tell you.
The Islamic community of Angola claims that 8 mosques have been destroyed in the past 2 years, and anyone who practices Islam risks being found guilty of disobeying Angola's penal code. Well, you know what? That's a pretty good damn penal code, I gotta tell you.
It is. I mean, it's great. They immediately came out and tried to act like it didn't happen, but it most certainly did. And that's some really good news. And I'm going to skip over the next story. We're going to catch up with it next, because I should have caught this in the editing portion of the pre-show preparation. But Egypt has also rewritten its constitution. They were deposed, and we had a interim government, and they were charged with coming up with another constitution. And I got this from Facebook, from a page called the Republican Security Council. And the draft text of Egypt's new constitution was revealed today. 5 months after the army deposed an Islamist president, the new constitution must now be approved by a national referendum in December, and that would be followed by parliamentary and presidential elections next year. Early this morning, the 50-member Constituent Assembly voted to approve the draft text article by article. It bans all religious political parties, including the Muslim Brotherhood. Sorry, Mr. Obama and Senator McCain and Graham, your ass is out on this one. It also, all of the constitutional changes added by the Brotherhood have been abolished. The discrimination against women has been removed. The support of terrorist groups has ended, and there is no longer any special relationship with Iran.
All assets of the Brotherhood have been confiscated, and all of its activities are now banned. AP quotes one member of the Constituent Assembly as saying, "The plan is to drain the sources of funding for the Brotherhood, break the joints of the group, and dismantle the podiums from which they deliver their message."
I love these guys because they don't mess around the edges. They're just going to go in there and break joints. Uh, Brotherhood operates 60 schools and 50 lucrative businesses, which, along with members' dues and donations, finance its activities. At least 10 schools have already been closed. The new government has canceled licenses for thousands of pro Brotherhood preachers, ordered thousands of Brotherhood operated mosques to close, and it is monitoring sermons.
Another assembly member said, "This is the end of political Islam in Egypt." Since Morsi's ouster on July 3rd, there have been at least 253 reported attacks in the Sinai Peninsula, most of which were carried out against Egyptian security forces and assets.
The Egyptian government has also asked Turkey's ambassador to leave in protest for its support of the Muslim Brotherhood. They accuse Turkey of supporting an organization bent on spreading instability. So there's another good sign from the Middle East and the people that have decided that they're not putting up with this mess. It took them a little long, though. I mean, I'm telling you, when you saw the size of the crowds that came out against Morsi, they should have acted a little quicker. But that being said, they acted nonetheless, and I think I'd like to see a resurgence of Syria getting some secular government in there. I'm no fan of Assad, but I don't like to see Christians killed either. And that's got to end, and that's one way to end it.
I think Egypt, is done listening to Obama, and I think, without Obama in their ear, I think they're going to probably get it right this time.
Well, they actually charged him with war crimes. There's some tribunals over there that say some very bad things about what we did, and they're true. I mean, and John McCain, you're as guilty as anybody else talking in my name. But anyway, the president. Well, let me just read a little bit of this because I'm sure everybody in the audience knows that Valerie Jarrett is the president. I mean, that's just the way it is. Obama's out there. He's doing all his golf playing and fundraising and going on vacations. Well, somebody's doing the work, and it's Valerie Jarrett. I mean, she was over in Iran for having talks for a year with them, and God only knows what we gave up. God only knows, and we will only know in the future. But her romantic life is kind of interesting. I mean, normally this is from Thomas Lifson. Normally, I don't traffic much in gossip, but the case of Valerie Jarrett is different. She may well be the most powerful woman in America, and almost certainly is the most powerful member of the Obama administration. The adjective shadowy definitely applies to this woman who enjoys her power through her relationship to the president, having never been confirmed by the Senate. Her title as senior advisor to the president barely scratches the surface of her real power. And anyway, the article goes on to explain that that's what has facilitated Obama's ability to go on all these trips and everything like that. And those who have crossed swords with Valerie, like former Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel and former Press Secretary Robert Gibbs, have found themselves out on their asses. She introduced Mr. and Mrs. Obama to each other and facilitated young lawyers Obama's entry into the Chicago machine. So anyway, let's say that it's worth noting that Jarrett, who was born in Iran, her father was a physician working there, is now reported to be dating Ahmad Rashad, a former NFL star and a Quranist. That is, a Muslim who follows only the Quran, not the Hadith, and I'll add the Surah. The stories about Muhammad's life that are also regarded as sacred scripture by nearly all Muslims. Richard Johnson of the New York Post.
It is interesting. I often wondered what happened to Ahmad Rashad. I haven't heard hide or hair of him in quite some time. Guess he's busy macking Valerie Jarrett. But, this goes to show you where, Jarrett, where her loyalties are. I mean, this is more evidence of the Muslim connection to the White House.
Oh yeah, and that's why I put it on. That's why I put it on the show. Some of the things are stunning that we've been doing, and they're explainable by things like this. And I mean, they try to make you out to be a crazy if you say Obama's a Muslim. You're not crazy, and it doesn't matter whether he's a Muslim or not. He supports the Muslims. I mean, you can look at his actions. He is a Muslim Brotherhood ally. That is unconscionable in an American president, and it just shows you our electorate needs some educating. I mean, and the mainstream media is not going to do it. And I fully believe this is the reason between the Fed and the Islamists. I believe that's why Glenn Beck got yanked off of Fox. Those are two items that must be talked about at all costs. And I'm not going to bore you with the Fed right now because we only have 10 minutes left on the show. And that's going to take, I'm not the guy to talk about that. There's people out there that are, but I'm not the guy to do it. But this other thing,
if you look at the history of it, it's kind of shocking that people don't get it. If you look at who he supported throughout the Arab Spring, we're at Iran now. You go back a step to Syria, you go back to Libya, Tunisia, Egypt. I mean, this guy has supported the Muslim Brotherhood everywhere he goes. I mean, people, I'm shocked that people don't get that yet.
well, I think our previous article said something to it. I mean, they've turned against Israel. The leftists have turned against Israel, and that's the most clear spot where you see him supporting the Muslim Brotherhood by not supporting Benjamin Netanyahu. And interestingly, Netanyahu said something the other day that he said that Iran's not building missiles and working on missiles for Israel. They already have missiles that can hit Israel. They're working on ICBMs to hit the United States. So this could very well be another part of his legacy. I hope not. I mean, I hope we could do something about that to intervene.
I agree. I think Netanyahu is exactly right. I mean, I believe they already have the capability to hit Israel, and they're just working on it to get out further, like the United States. I think he's dead on.
I do too. Now, something interesting that's come out of this administration is this is awesome. Buying guns on Black Friday becomes a tradition under Obama. And I just think that says all it needs to say.
Yeah, I mean, he has been. In fact, we've got a friend at our chat that he used to be a gun dealer, and he retired. He made so much damn money on it when Obama got in. He was able to retire selling so many guns. I think his name was Gunslinger, but he said this guy has been the best thing that ever happened to the gun business.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, my dealer said that since the Obama, especially since the second term, when the shortage started happening, he said he had 3 times the amount of sales. It's just incredible. I saw a television shop, a TV repair place that doubles as a gun shop now. I mean, it's like everybody's getting in on this, and the good part about it is prices are starting to come down. So now's the time to tool up, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, again, I'm gonna ask you to go to the show notes links page on steelcityresistance.blogspot.com because we're not going to be able to cover everything here. We're going to go over it here a little bit and see what we can squeeze in here. But you've seen the president's shift toward amnesty for illegal aliens as he's getting pummeled with health care. And some of these people are starting to get militant, and I resent the hell out of that. I mean, when our law enforcement will not take action. I mean, these people, like when they came over the border in Texas, the Mexican border, and we should have shot them. They should have been killed right there where they stood. I mean, this is out of control. Now they're threatening John Boehner. John Boehner's the first thing he's done good. Decided that we're not having any conference with the Senate on this issue. Now you still have Eric Cantor and Paul Ryan. You still have some sleepers in the House that are trying to push this. So apparently some lobbyists or big business people have their claws in those two guys. Uh, but Boehner's saying that he's not going to do it, and he's promised that. And then you have this coalition of activists that say that they're gonna take this out on Boehner and have some kind of plot for revenge.
Yeah, that is interesting. We saw, protesters showing up at people's houses and, trying intimidation there. But, back to, what happened on the border with these guys throwing rocks and bottles and then just be getting, a slap on the wrist or sent back home or whatever. Could you imagine if one of us threw a rock or a bottle at a policeman?
Oh
Would
yeah.
they just let us go home? Not a chance.
Oh, I know. I mean, Karl Rove is actively working against conservatives nationwide in an effort to stop the Tea Party movement. His funding of Grover Norquist's organization, which has supported amnesty and publicly used progressive media in its efforts against Senators Ted Cruz and Mike Lee during their attempt to defund Obamacare, seems to be part of that war against conservatives. And I just can't believe, and I've said this before, Fox News, get him off the network. Stop bringing him on television. You're killing your brand. You are killing your brand. The people that watch your damn shows are us. And we don't want to see Karl Rove. We don't ever want to see Karl Rove, ever. And he's on every show they have.
Yeah, he's been a disaster for Republicans, for quite some time. And, another one that I could say he could go would be Juan Williams, but that's a different subject. But,
At
Karl
least
Rove,
Williams, at least
go
Williams
ahead.
isn't. At least Williams isn't pretending to be a conservative. You know what
Yeah,
you get with him.
that's true. But I mean, he has no more credibility, with conservatives at all. He's the enemy. I mean, I think he's thinking that he's, got a cave on the immigration issue, maybe to win elections, or is it for, corporations wanting cheap labor? I think it might be a little bit of both. But, we got to stand on principle, and this Rove is has no principles. He's looking at his little whiteboard and he's trying to figure out a way to win, and basically selling the country out to do so. But he hasn't delivered for us in quite some time, so he's pretty much irrelevant.
He's delivered to himself, though, and I think that's what the entire game is. He comes in here and he doesn't want to win elections. He just wants to get as many TV ads as he can so he can make his own millions. It's sickening. Now, another thing, the Communist Party, the straight up real Communist Party, USA political party, Communist Party chair says to save Obamacare by calling its detractors racist. The national chairman of the Communist Party USA suggests supporters of the Affordable Care Act should accuse its detractors of being racist as a tactic to regain support for the troubled law. Now, let me explain something to the Communist Party of America. It's over, man. The racist card's not going to work anymore. People like me, people like Mr. J, don't care if you call us racist. Call me a racist all day long. Go ahead. It's not going to work. I don't care. You wore that out. You took a perfectly good weapon and you wrecked the barrel. You bent the barrel of the weapon. It's inoperable.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's so old. It's been played for so long. But the beauty of this disgusting law is that it affects all races. It affects everybody. It affects all income levels. So it's to label somebody as a racist. Well, they're going to be calling Black Americans racist, Hispanic Americans racist, and so on. I mean, it's just the nature of this terrible law. It's indiscriminate.
And they've used this attack on every single issue because every issue is so hollow and they have to lie about it. The racism card is the last resort card. You know that, ladies and gentlemen. That's the last one they have in their magazine, and they've used it on every single failure that they've cooked up. Now, on a slightly more serious note, China has carved out an air defense area, and being the bold and courageous government that we have, U.S. airlines have been advised to give China flight plans over new air defense zone. So this is just something else that shows you a capitulating America that's going to have to be revitalized, and it's going to take years, and it's going to be tough.
Yeah, this story is quite disturbing. China's really flexing their muscle lately. Is this the patch of space over those islands that are in dispute, or is this
It
something
is.
different?
No, it's
Yeah,
that's the one.
we sent some, the military sent some planes up there just to. I'm sure that was just to test out, see what they got down there, but maybe a test of wills. But I mean, again, it goes back to leadership. There's no leadership. There's no strength in the White House, and I don't see the United States doing anything about it.
I don't either, and an Air Force general will probably be fired over it. But just on a closing note, Washington Post op-ed says that we should repeal presidential term limits, and who didn't see that one coming? So, I mean, it's something.
That's this guy's got a big enough ego. These clowns don't have to put out this garbage. I mean, he really thinks he's some kind of messiah or something. And these people think that he is, and it's just disgusting. I mean, even Ronald Reagan, I wouldn't consider him a messiah. I think he was a good president, but these guys, the worship of Obama is really sickening.
It is. And Mr. J, thank you once again, and I'm going to send it over to you and let you close up the Southern Command, and then we'll get on out of here.
Thanks, Hutch, and thank you to all the loyal viewers out there. We had a great week last week, and you can follow me at mrjausa.com or mrjausa at Facebook, Twitter, Tea Party Community, or Chris Ivan at Facebook. We will see you next time.
And thanks again, and we will now take the Southern Command and put it back into a reserve status, and we will catch up with it next week. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much to all the viewers, all the people in the chat room. Thanks, everybody. If you want us to talk about something, or if you have something that's on your mind you'd like to see covered on the show, send an email to scrtv@live.com, and we'll see what we can do. Check the show out, steelcityresistance.blogspot.com. Surrounded in Pittsburgh, Steel City Resistance on iTunes and on Stitcher and everywhere else. It's also a radio show. Don't forget that. I'm about ready to take that thing off the air if it doesn't get some more listeners. That being said, the TV audience is outstanding. And again, we thank you so much for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will catch you next week. Thank you for letting us into your life for an hour, and God bless.